I'd like to share with you a personal application. When I first came to Hillside, it felt very different from where I had served before. Even though it was not my preference and I didn't like it as much, but still God placed me in a place where it was very busy for the 11 years of my ministry experience, where I was very used to big buildings, downtown Toronto, big congregations, 3,000, 4,000 members, big platforms, huge number of subscribers and YouTube channel consistently seeing. Honestly speaking, I didn't really like it. It was too big and too busy. But at the same time, God was working in a very extravagant ways. And Hillside, when I came to Hillside and when I came to Mount Albert, it felt relatively smaller. Even though that's what I personally prefer, so please don't get me wrong, I love it. I love the quietness. But that transition, I'll have to be honest, the transition was, it's a different setting. And I was praying about Hillside, I was praying for Hillside, and this word, Bethlehem, the city of Bethlehem, is so meaningful to me because God gave me a promise about Hillside Church and the town of Mount Albert with exactly the reference of Bethlehem. As I was praying for Hillside and as I was in the process of becoming the lead pastor here, God reminded me this passage as a promise, which was Matthew chapter 2, verse 4 to 6. It says, "And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for it is written by the prophet." And this passage was what I was reminded of in coming to Hillside in Mount Albert. "And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Jesus' coming also started small in Bethlehem. Not because it was impressive, but because God glorifies himself through humility. Those who are in humble estate. And this was the promise God was giving to Hillside. We could be small, but we are not the least. Because despite our size, and also in and through our weakness, Christ will be all the more glorified, all the more preached, and all the more be made known. I believe this firmly for our church. Do you? Church, that same truth applies not only to our church, but to your specific individual lives too. You may feel small. You may feel unnoticed, limited, under-resourced, tired, overlooked. But Bethlehem teaches us this. Your weakness is not a barrier to God's glory. It is the stage of it. And we see that in the humility of Christ himself. In verse 7 in today's passage, if you go to the next slide, what does it say? "And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes." These are clothes for infants. Someone who is so tiny and vulnerable and weak and feeble. And laid him where? In a manger. Because there was no place for them in the inn. She gave birth to her firstborn son and laid him in the manger. Jesus did not come as a warrior, someone who has all put together, who's so influential and powerful. He did not come as a prince, someone who can rule over all things. He did not come as a ruler. Rather, how did he come? He came as a baby, helpless, dependent, vulnerable, innocent. And he was laid in not a palace, not a home, but a feeding trough. Why? Because there was no place for them in the inn. What we see is his weakness, Jesus' weakness, his vulnerability, his humility. I would even say his humiliation. From the very first breath he took on Christmas Day, Jesus experienced rejection, loneliness, exclusion. Have you ever felt that? Rejection, loneliness, exclusion. And this leads to our second question. Why was there no room for Christ?